So with the release of the legendary upgrade for the Venezia, I've been playing it a little bit more, and I've got a really good game here for you guys. It is arms race, but we're gonna do a ridiculous amount of damage with the Venezia, and this one's gonna go right down to the wire, which, as you guys know, is my absolute favorite type of game in World of Warships. A lot of fun to be had there. The new legendary upgrade, if you didn't know, gives you extra smoke charges and reduces the cooldown between those smokes at the cost of taking up your concealment slot in your upgrades. So a bit of a downside there, and I've got some thoughts as to whether or not it is worth it. And in this game, we're going to have a few situations where I think it's very much worth taking the legendary upgrade on the Venezia, and maybe a few where we could have done a little bit better had we actually just had concealment. Very basic, but very good upgrade. For now, though, we can see just how ridiculously powerful SAP is. I think it's a bit of a shame that the Italian line got SAP, especially with the Venezia early on, showing off how strong and honestly overpowered this ammo type really is. A lot of the consistency of high explosive can be found here with just the alpha damage of AP. We're going to be seeing a lot of 10,000 damage salvos out of this thing, which is pretty crazy considering we are a cruiser here. And realistically, I think that might be the reason that the rest of the Italian ships, the battleships, the destroyers, are so underwhelming. It's just because of this ammo type. If you tightened up the spread on the battleships, gave them more range, a little better reload, they'd be overpowered very quickly. The destroyers would be similar if you gave them a lot of range. They would suddenly just become the best gunboats in the game. That's what it would come down to, just because SAP is that good. So with Venezia, you are the best version of that, I think. That's one of the main factors here. Look at that. Angled Hanover max range, still almost 10,000 damage. Ridiculous. I think Venezia is one of the better tier 10 cruisers in the game and is extremely powerful if you're able to play it right. Here we're playing behind an island. This is a pretty common way to play a lot of cruisers, but Venezia can do very well in the open water area. Another 10,000 damage salvo. It's more consistent than battleships, honestly. That's the way I view a lot of this damage. Our maneuverability is pretty great. We do get spotted here by the Colombo, so we just move up a little bit and are still able to use this island. The good shell velocity does make it a little harder. Again, 8,000 again at that rank. Come on. It's a little ridiculous. But here we're not even using the legendary upgrade or concealment. Either one wouldn't be terribly useful for us. And I think it's really important to find islands like this, even if you aren't a Des Moines or a Worcester or something that is more traditionally wanting to look for islands to farm over. I think all cruisers are really able to benefit from positions like this. It allows you to be a little bit closer, a little safer, focus on aiming, hitting the right parts of ships, because that is an element of SAP. You can't hit certain upper belts, right? We only have, 50 mil pen on this SAP? Maybe a little more than that. But the SAP doesn't actually pen German battleships or the Russian battleships upper belt, for example. So you do have to be a little bit careful. So then you're going for superstructures like we were against that Hanover. And now that the Colombo has smoked up, well, the enemy team is running from that flank, so we can focus a little bit more towards the middle of the map. Our team has collected quite a few buffs, which, as you know, is very good in arms race, maybe too good even, considering this game mode is all about steamrolls. But this, I guess, is going to be the rare one that actually is a really close game, honestly. SAP, though, really is at its best against destroyers. We're going to do a lot of damage to that poor gearing there. I think that was over 10,000 damage. Yeah. SAP is pretty nuts against DDs, and so that is where the downside, I guess, of the legendary upgrade comes in. That worse concealment means you're playing further back, which means you're not as close to destroyers, you're not getting as accurate salvos in to nuke them right off the bat. It's going to be harder for you to engage in those early destroyer combats and actually help your DD win. I think that's going to be the issue with the legendary upgrade. There's other times where if you've run out of these smokes that maybe you're going to have a tougher time getting away, you get caught bow in, something like that. because you can run through these smokes a little bit quicker now that the consumable has such a better reload time. It's a lot easier to use all your smokes a lot quicker. We haven't used any yet, but we will be. I tend to like to save them for situations where I'm stuck bow in and I need to turn out, but I can't safely do it without being undetected. There's our first buff from Sansonetti here. When you get 100 hits, it helps your consumables a little bit. Really what we're looking for is a Confederate out of Sansonetti. That'll give us a little bit better reload, which is pretty valuable. And then again, just smashing this Moskva. The enemy team has some pretty strong presence here. We see the Sejong about to smoke up, or maybe actually this is the gearing. So hopefully we can get a nice hit into him. Unfortunately, I don't get my front guns, and I miss the most of that salvo, I would say. And now it's time to just run away. But because we're a Venezia, we're not going to be spotted or be able to stay spotted for all that long. I'm waiting for the bloom to reset from shooting my guns. That is something you have to be aware of. And then we're going to use our smoke to get away, and we'll be just fine. That is something to be very aware of, though, as I was saying, is your bloom. 10 kilometers, about 9.9, I believe. If you're shooting and then you pop your smoke and somebody's within that range, your smoke's not going to cover you. You have to wait that 20 seconds for your bloom to reset. Here I was not expecting the Sejong to be here. Otherwise, I certainly would have had armor piercing. We would have probably dev struck him there. But still decent damage, and we got some spots for especially our Montana to get some really good salvos in. And then we're just going to blind fire him a little bit, and we do actually manage to get that kill. Sansonetti's next perk, when you get a kill, gives you more range, which is pretty nice when you're running a build like this, more focused on reload. You'll notice in the initial video where I was taking a look at the Venezia, had a really good game with reload, and that's not always going to happen. It's maybe very difficult to have games where reload is going to be the best option. We all know how passive tier 10 can be sometimes, so taking range can be a very beneficial way to play the Venezia. Makes it a little more comfortable, especially with the reduced concealment thanks to the legendary upgrade. But if you have Sansonetti and you're able to get a kill early on, that really does help you deal with that downside. Next up, though, a massive strength for this legendary upgrade. I've talked about some of the weaknesses. Well, look at that. Our smoke is just about to come back up as we need it. We're going out broadside on to a Hanover and a Thunderer right now. That would have been bad if we didn't have our smoke available to us. That is a really, really big deal here. So you can see how it depends how you play the ship. This is, oh my goodness, 10,000. See how, this is why you want to get close to DDs. Guaranteeing hits on destroyers is ridiculous. The sap is so busted. But you can see how this legendary upgrade does impact how you're able to play the Venezia. You want those DD engagements. As you can see, it's just ridiculous. You just take a DD off the board instantly. It's crazy. Especially if it's an early engagement. Often people charge into caps, bow on to each other, then they do a turn away. And if you're able to time that turn away, getting those shells on a broadside destroyer, oh my goodness, it just turns the whole tide of that, at least that flank. That's a very good way to win engagements as a Venezia. Even though you don't have a radar, you're still really strong in that destroyer engagement, and that'll help your team win a lot of flanks. Again, 9,000 into Hanover superstructure. It's kind of ridiculous. So personally, how do I feel about the legendary upgrade? Obviously, a little more conflicted. It's not just a no-brainer, you should take it, but I do like it. I like the playstyle differences. I enjoy having the smokes. Another really fun way to use the smoke screens is to get in between areas of the map where you have good cover. So if you need to cross an open water channel and you know you're going to get spotted and there's battleships that you're going to be broadside onto, well, the smoke can help you cross those gaps and be totally safe, get you into a more aggressive position, or just help you get out of a bad situation. Something like that is very, very useful. And here you'll notice that, well, we want to be aggressive. The enemy team is winning this game, and we need to be aggressive on this cap zone. We can't let them get it. We need to finish off some targets, so we're going to push in again. And even though there's still battleships here, I'm still pretty confident because the smoke is coming off cooldown. That is the benefit here. The smoke comes off cooldown way, way sooner. You can use far more of them to play a little more aggressive. We do manage to dodge the Thunderer's first salvo, And then you notice I'm waiting here. I'm not going to shoot. And then I use my smoke. I decide not to shoot here because the Thunder would spot us that 9.9 kilometer smoke fire range. And you got to wait for that 20 seconds, typically, if you want to guarantee yourself be covered by this smoke. That said, there are some radar ships around in this game still that you have to be a little bit careful of if you're playing aggressive into them. But of course, Thunder does not have a radar. So we're just going to wait, try and open up an angle here. You'll notice our battleships are a little passive in this one, and our Kleber is kind of just following us around. So this really is on us to do a lot of the damage in this late game here. We've done a decent job already, 214k. That Confederate did come through, so our reload is pretty nice. Unfortunately, we get absolutely crushed by Overmatch there on the Thunder. That was not Citadel's. That was just Overmatch from only 3 of his turrets. He had actually already used 1 against the Kaaba. So now that we've taken some pain and we have managed to help kill off that Thunder, nearly getting the Des Moines there, it's time to retreat for a little bit. But again, our smokes are about to come back up in 1 minute. So we retreat for just a little bit, and then we're able to push back into the fight. That's, I think, the real strength here of this legendary upgrade, allowing you to play like this, where, yes, you're kiting away for some of it, but there are opportunities in games, or times in games, where you need to be pushing, or you need to take the fight to the enemy. If I just play at the back here, like we have been doing, some of our battleships have been doing here, we're going to lose, guaranteed. So we need to take some of these engagements. We need to force the cruisers to get spotted and try and finish off some low health targets. I'm really keeping an eye out for that 30 seconds now left on our smoke timer, waiting for it to come back up. And again, just slowly pushing back in, trying to time it, trying to get range on the Moskva here. And hopefully we can take him out. 9k again. Sap's still a little bit busted, I gotta say. 230k already now. Venezia feeling pretty good. Of course, this is arms race though, so we are getting more damage overall. We do have a reload buff, at least one of them, and we do have a damage increase as well. Gonna use our smoke here to hopefully evade the carrier, try and make the drop as hard as we possibly can, so we're turning. And then he actually hits every single bomb on us. Yeah, fun. Hybrids. Very fun and enjoyable part of World of Warships. That is sarcasm. If you did not get that, I absolutely hate planes and subs and everything to do with them. But we'll have to make do with what we have. The Pommern reversing out. We are able to shoot here without getting detected, getting ourselves a high caliber, another 10,000 damage into a superstructure. Again, aiming up high on these German battleships. They have such giant superstructures. It's one of the main weaknesses of the German battleships, that they're just free damage. It really is. Even though the weakness of Sap would be that we're not able to do good damage to his upper belt, doesn't matter. German battleships are just pretty weak in that way. Maybe if they had better saturation into their superstructure, I could say the German battleships are tanky, but no, they don't. They just take massive full pens to the superstructure. Now getting into the late game here, down to a 4v4 with 5 minutes left, and we've already done 260,000 damage. We find where the gearing is finally. This is the guy that we weren't quite able to kill in the early game, and that might come back to haunt us here a little bit as we're pushing towards him. It's really important, and honestly, looking back on this game, I should have been turning around here. It's really not all that important for me to be killing this Pommern outright right now. I should be trying to maybe regroup with our Kaaba, at least not sitting broadside or pushing into where a gearing is. A little too focused here on trying to get kills at the moment. But kills are required as well. To win this game, it's really not looking like a scenario where we can cap out. We kind of just have to kill the enemy team before they're able to get the cap or just run away and live, honestly. At these late game scenarios, it really does come down to that sometimes, where if you're just able to live and you're ahead on points, you're going to win the game. That's how it goes. So we finally decide to turn around. Fortunately, we do time that with the Pommern shot, and we should be trying to stay away from where the gearing is going to be torping us from. I think in the moment, I just kind of forgot. There's a lot of things to think about in the late game here. So trying again to finish off this Pommern. It's a little difficult to know who to go after. Part of me thinks I should be going after maybe the cruiser within the cap, trying to help our Kaaba a little bit more there. but then the Pommern is on like 8,000 damage, so, or 8,000 health, and that's a pretty easy kill for us, right? Unfortunately, he's able to go dark, and in fact, I think he grounds because we don't actually get any hits there. So we turn back in. Our smoke is up, and again, I'm in this mindset of, okay, we got our smoke back, we can turn away if needed, we should be relatively safe, and again, I'm just really forgetting about the DD on the flank. And I'm just going to be going broadside on to a DD. So I'm sorry if that's foreshadowing what's about to happen a little too much. We'll try and get a blind shot in, assuming the Pommern is reversing. We do all right there. 300,000 damage. A pretty massive amount, even for arms race. But there it is. The foreshadowed torps. They do manage to take me out. And with that, yeah, our team did not do very well without me alive in the end game, so we do end up losing that one. 303k, would have been nice to win it, but at least it was a close game in arms race. I have not had one of those, I don't know about ever, really. Arms race always ends in blowouts for me, so pretty enjoyable, and honestly, a great showcase of what the Ledge mod is capable of. And personally, I would really view that as a very successful design of a legendary upgrade. It's not necessary, and it provides a very unique way of playing the ship. It augments the way the ship can be played, but it's not mandatory. And so I really, really like that design. Here we're going for a very all-out damage build, taking top-grade gunner, synergizing with the worst concealment here from heavy sap, giving us extra damage even, and better reload when someone is spotted within our detection range, which is 15.8, which can be very difficult to play with only 17 kilometers of range. That's where Sansonetti is pretty important on all Italian ships, I would say. Maybe that's another weakness of this entire tech tree, is that Sansonetti feels necessary on every single ship. So a little weird design on the tech tree as a whole, but at least the cruisers are pretty strong. The rest of them, the battleships, destroyers, not very good. Again, we're not getting concealment. That is the downside here. Or maybe even steering gears. There's a lot of people who love to play double rudder, or maybe you play steering gears mod 2 and then you run propulsion here. Makes you very, very difficult to hit, especially thanks to the extremely short turning radius. That's one of the things that allows Venezia to be almost impossible to hit at range, honestly. One-on-one against a battleship, you're really not getting hit ever, especially at those longer ranges. You do have 30 mil armor here and there, so against those 406 mil battleships, you're pretty fine. Even have a bit of icebreaker here up close. So I'm a really big fan of Venezia, honestly. I think this is a really, really good ship, and the way this legendary upgrade is designed, I like it a lot. But, like I said, it's not mandatory. You don't need it to play the ship, so I know those research points can be pretty expensive to get, very difficult for newer players, so it's not like you need it to play the ship. And honestly, that concealment build is maybe even a little bit better, honestly, depending on how you like to play this ship. So, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.